Emma Kent joining us to talk about state test scores, but yes, talk about Rankin County. I'm just kidding. I knew that would stop you completely. Where I would talk about Tupelo Public School District, Lee County, and the region, but specifically those two because that's what we're dealing
about.
with right now. Yes,
right.
So. General impressions kind of now that the embargo has lifted and we can discuss these test scores.
Well, Derek, I've talked to Jimmy Weeks, who's the Lee County Superintendent, and I've talked to Gerald Loden, who is Tupelo Superintendent, and kind of their impressions are they were both very pleased with the scores. This year, well, the scores this year, but last year, the test that these scores are for was the PARCC test, and that was different than the year before. So the scores are a lot lower, but they expected that because it's a lot more, it's a much more challenging test, and the standards that they're being tested on are a lot more rigorous. So there was a drop in scores, but it was expected, and it's, even though the scores are lower, it doesn't necessarily mean that students are performing worse. It just means it's just a difference in the test, if that makes sense. But yeah, Lee County. Let's see, Jimmy Weeks. He had good things to say. He said that their fifth grade math was a little lower than they had wanted, so they'll have to work on their fifth grade math. But they were pleased, other than that, across the board with how they did, and they did do pretty well. Tupelo, their district scores. First let me backtrack a little bit, but the PARCC test ranks, you have different levels of proficiency, I guess, but they score you in level 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5. And forgot about the 5s.
Nobody remembers the 5.
And then, in this case, the 5 is the best. So you want to be a 5.
Please remember the 5.
So the 4s and 5s is what you're really looking at for the percentage of students who scored on those levels. That's your proficient and advanced students. Mm-hmm. So in Tupelo, across the board, there are 12 tests, as it's 3rd through 8th grade, math and language arts. But in all but one of those, their percentages of those level 4 and 5 kids were in the top 25. So except for 8th grade math, across the board, they scored really well in those all those tests. And Dr. Loden specifically noted that Milam did a really great job. He was very pleased with Milam's scores.
And as you said, this PARCC test is new this year. I think anytime, and I think you also touched on the fact that they anticipated scores to be a little bit lower when kids are used to a certain thing and then they switch it up on them.
Right,
of course, it's very different. I couldn't do a standardized test if I was given one right now. I don't care if it was Scantron or not. It would be very difficult for me to do. As a result, who did well in Northeast Mississippi? I mean, where were the higher standards at?
Boonville did really well. I was looking over this just a few minutes ago, and they're in the top 10 districts in 7 of 12 of those tests. So I mean, that's really, really great. And some other, a lot of Northeast Mississippi districts did well. New Albany and Union County and Amory did well. Pontotoc, City Schools. Pontotoc did really well in the math tests. And then one that I noticed and that Chris and I talked about yesterday was Okolona School District did really well on, I think it was 4th grade math, that they were like the 3rd best district in the state.
Wow.
And historically, they're not usually in the top districts in the state, so that was kind of interesting too. But yeah, I mean, across the board, Northeast Mississippi districts did well.
Well, good. That's the important thing then. Of course, we'll have more detailed information in tomorrow's issue of the Daily Journal with charts and all kinds of facts
all
and
of
figures,
the numbers.
all
If
those
you're into
things
that
you love so much putting together.
Yes, I love numbers. Well, I actually had a good bit of help from Chris Kiefer over there. So thankfully I didn't have to handle too many numbers, but so all that tomorrow.
All right. Check out more information in tomorrow's issue of your Daily Journal.